So the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer is now out. Avengers Endgame is coming up in only a couple months, so we're getting hyped for that. And I'm going to review every movie in the MCU now under the name of Road to Endgame, obviously being Avengers Endgame, Avengers 4, which has been really anticipated. And we're going to start this off with Iron Man, the first movie in the entire MCU, the one that kicked it all off. It's a hell of a lot smaller. It was done on a low budget. It was directed by Jon Favreau, who was a great director and does a great job with this sort of thing. And he also plays Happy in the movie too, Happy Hogan. So the overall plot is that Tony Stark is obviously the main character of this, and he is just a snobby, egotistical playboy billionaire. He doesn't care for anyone really. He just builds weapons. He's a weapon manufacturer. And he doesn't care about all the lives he's costed with those weapons and all the destruction he causes with those weapons. And I think this is great. I really love this movie. I really do. I think it's one of the greatest superhero movies ever, and it's definitely one of the best in the entire MCU. It's the first film in the MCU, obviously, so it's a lot smaller, it's a lot simpler, and that makes it way rewatchable, like way more rewatchable than most of the films in the MCU, because it's not like tied to all this big universe. It's just this simple, it's just its own movie, and it's just really great to watch. It's really fun to watch. And Tony Stark is a great character. He's probably one of the greatest characters in superhero film history. I love his arc with him going from this just egotistical, horrible person, like I explained, to being someone who actually cares and actually regrets his actions and tries to fix them up. And I think that's just a really great arc overall. I think he's a great character. I love arcs like that, which go from just bad to good, like a bad person to someone who actually cares about lives and everything. Robert Downey Jr. does an amazing job as Iron Man in this movie as Tony Stark. I couldn't imagine anyone else being Iron Man. He's a great actor. He's really charismatic, and I just hope they don't recast Iron Man as anyone else, because they can never live up to the performance of Robert Downey Jr., because he is just made for this role, essentially. So the opening of the film is the best part of the film, in my opinion. It gets straight into the action, like straight into the explosion stuff, with like a little bit of a conversation at the start to set up Tony and his character and everything. But he gets captured by the mercenaries, and then it just cuts back to like a couple hours later, and then explains the entire like Tony Stark's character and whatnot. And my favourite parts of the movie is when Tony is building his suits and all that. I think it's just really amazing to watch an engineer at work, even if I can't do it at all myself. This isn't an engineering channel at all, but I think it's really admirable to watch for some reason, and I think they're the coolest parts of the movie. Pepper and Tony's relationship in this movie is also really good. It's one of the more natural, it's one of the better relationships in comic book films. It's like really developed on in the later movies, but it's also really good in this movie. Pepper feels like an actual character in this movie too, rather than just, the love interest, and their relationship just really develops, really becomes interesting across the entire MCU. That's why you should watch all of it. But the villain is Obadiah Stane in this film, and obviously that's a huge part of the entire film, the villain. And he's okay. He's a pretty good villain. His motivation basically is that Tony just takes the spotlight. He used to be the spotlight, Obadiah. He used to own the company. But then Tony Stark just comes in and takes him over, essentially, and just puts him in the shadow of himself. And so that makes a really good motivation. He obviously doesn't like that Tony's just getting all this fame just because he's the son of Howard Stark. And so that was basically his initial motivation. But then it's revealed that he's been working with the mercenaries that captured Tony the entire time. And that just kind of destroys his entire motivation, his entire sympathy for him, considering just working with mercenaries, just kill him off the bat. It just really, you can't sympathize with him on that level. So, yeah, he's just an okay villain. The actor does a pretty good job with him. But yeah. The other villains, I guess, are kind of the Ten Rings, if you could call them villains, and they're just, plot devices, essentially. They're just the bad guys who capture Tony. and force him to work on the Iron Man suit, not the Iron Man suit, the Jericho missile, with Yinsen, who's also been captured. And instead of making the Jericho missile, they secretly make the Iron Man suit. And for some reason, the mercenaries do not notice at all. Like, they're really stupid. Their security measures are about as good as the mole, essentially. Don't ask me about moles. I've never really gone to one, but you know, security is very low, is what I'm trying to say. And they easily get away with making an Iron Man suit. They just check on them every so often. But they are pretty smart with how they construct the plans. Like, they have like multiple pieces of paper, and the only way to see the Iron Man suit with all those plans is to overlap them over a light. So it's pretty smart. But the final fight in the movie is pretty good. It's a lot smaller than other final fights in the MCU. The way he defeats him is, I guess, pretty creative. Tony becomes pretty creative with how he ends up trying to beat Obadiah. But, you know, you don't really care when he dies, considering he's just Obadiah. He's not really the biggest villain. He's quite large, but, you know, he's not really the most likable villain in all of the MCU. They also sneak in S.H.I.E.L.D. into this movie, too. Quite sneaky, because most of the time they call them by their actual name, which I cannot for the life of me remember, which is part of the joke around S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie. And this movie is quite funny, too. But yeah, then they call him S.H.I.E.L.D. at the end, and that's just for the Marvel fans, the little small Marvel fans who were able to like figure this out while watching the movie when it first came out. And the post-credit scene is obviously also a big teaser for the people who actually sit through the credits, and for the Marvel fans who obviously know this sort of thing when it came out. And it's obviously Nick Fury comes up to him, explains to him he's part of a bigger picture, which he definitely is now. There's 20 movies. But yeah, and it's really quite a great post-credit scene because it's the first one. It really teases this whole thing, kicks the whole thing off when he says, "I am Iron Man," and when Nick Fury walks in. And overall, I would give this movie a 9.5 out of 10 because I love this movie. I really do. It's one of the best superhero movies. It's one of the best Marvel movies. I love Tony Stark's character. And I think it's just a really great movie. And you should totally watch the whole MCU before seeing Endgame, which is coming out this April, I think it is. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be great. I hope it's going to be great, just like this movie. And yeah, so thank you for watching, and bye.